Welcome everybody to today's episode of the Great Birth Rebellion podcast, where we grapple with current research and historical knowledge to help you get the best out of your pregnancy, birth and postpartum journey. My name is Dr. Melanie Jackson at Melanie the Midwife. I'm a clinical and research midwife with my PhD, which is why I send out a weekly email which contains the resources that we use to create every single Great Birth Rebellion episode. You can join the podcast mailing list at melaниethemidwife.com. Our Great Birth Rebellion premium members also get access to podcast transcripts, additional resources, the Ask Mel a Question button, and an exclusive monthly Ask Me Anything episode where I answer listener questions. That said, let's get into it. Welcome everybody to today's episode of the Great Birth Rebellion podcast. Today I have my next guest in the Wise Woman series. So if you're up to date with listening to the podcast, you'll have heard me interview Cheryl Sidery, who was a private midwife of 40 years in episode 79. And today we're continuing the Wise Woman series with an interview with Fiona Hallinan, boss woman of the pelvic space in Melbourne here in Australia. She's been a midwife for over 30 years and now focuses her efforts on internal pelvic release work as a practitioner and a trainer. She's an educator for spinning babies and also runs face-to-face birth education along with her team. And you can find out more about Fiona on her website, which is linked in the show notes below. Welcome, Fiona.
Hi, Mel. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us, before we sort of kick off, for our listeners, can you introduce yourself? Give us an idea of who you are and how you would describe your work in this space.
Well, I'm a nurse and a midwife and maternal child health nurse by my training. I'm a body worker of sorts and a mother of two. And there's two dogs here in the background as well. I came to understand or to be taught a basic framework for what was once called internal vaginal massage. Many folks will have heard me speak of the first teacher I had, a teacher that blew my mind to the awareness, to the great awareness of the great pelvis, to be honest. And her name was Wintergreen. And I'll always be very grateful to her for what she shared with me. So part of that body of work she shared was a thing called internal vaginal massage, which she founded herself. And she never claims any greatness around that. She never did. It was just part of what she did. She was a very creative woman. She could see the body in a very three-dimensional, multi-dimensional way, really. And she wasn't a midwife by training at all. But there was a community. The gist of the internal work, the massage work, came from working with a community in the US way back when, and we're probably going back 40, 50 years. And I know she worked with a lot of very religious communities and Indigenous communities, and in many areas of the US then home birth was illegal. And so she had to try to nut out how could she help the women prepare their vaginal space to avoid trauma and to avoid any sutures. Because if they presented to the hospital, they were at risk of prosecution. They felt under threat. And so she thought, okay, let's nut this out. That was the way her mind always worked. Let's nut this out. That was the big piece of gold that she shared with. She didn't realise, but she sort of imposed on me. Let's try and nut something out.
Let's try it. So she kind of just had this thought of how can we prevent vaginal trauma through childbirth?
Yeah.
And it kind of had this idea at internal vaginal work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then did she pass that on to you? Was that?
Yeah, she did. She shared it with me on my body. And then I learned it also on her body. Well, even before that. She was taught, she asked an obstetrician way back when, we're going back a long time. She asked an obstetrician, how do I help women get ready for birth? What do they need? And this doctor told her they need a strong heart. They need strong abdominal muscles to hold the baby in good positions. And they need soft vaginas. So,
there's so much wisdom in that.
yeah, they're the 3 pearls. And so the strong heart, she was always big on women doing a lot of chest, a lot of arm swinging, a lot of getting the circulation up into that cavity and making sure the heart was well perfused. And she had a whole lot of different techniques to address all of those things. So the soft vagina part came with her inventing this internal vaginal massage, which was really just working, from what I can remember. We're going back 35 years. And you got to remember, I was a novice. I was a brand new midwife. And for this mentor who I deeply respected to be teaching me, but for me to be learning on her body, I was just like, like any novice, you just feel like a fool, an absolute fool. And you're trying to juggle with your feelings of absolute humility with trying to learn at the same time. So I got the gist of it, and I didn't share it because I was too embarrassed and I was too shy. I wondered, I was too shy and I was too worried what people would think about me. Too much ego. And then I was at this birth, and we were teaching a workshop together, her and I, and she was a very bombastic character. For all that I loved her, it was like, oh, she was difficult. Anyway, a woman I was caring for, I was doing private practice where I was supporting women in hospital when they wanted to have their baby in hospital. And she was a Japanese lady. I still remember her name. And it was a very long, extraordinary situation, and it was very political. It was very challenging, not by me, but by the mother herself. It was very interesting to watch the cultural confinement that this woman, the others would put this woman into, because she was Japanese, so they all thought she'd just bow and say yes to whatever they said. Nothing could have been further from the truth. She was feisty. She was amazing. Anyway, she eventually got her baby girl out, and we had 2 nights and 2 days, and it was tough going, and it was the tensions. You know what it's like sometimes in a hospital, the tensions. And, of course, Wintergreen's oblivious to all this because she couldn't have given a poop about the whole thing, but I felt the whole shebang. So I was really relieved the baby was out. It was safe. Everyone was safe. I just wanted to go home, have a shower, cup of tea, go home, go to bed. And she kept going on about this woman's vagina. And the woman had sustained a little first-degree tear and a tear in her labia, and she was pretty swollen. But, I was thinking, this is a pretty good outcome. And she kept going on. Now, when this woman goes on, she goes on and on and on. Anyway, she was going on about this darling woman's vagina. Oh, my God, look at it. It's terrible. What are we going to do? Oh, my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And in the end, I just said, would you just shut up? It's fine. We're going to put calming, cool stuff on it. We'll give it painkillers. It's going to look a lot different tomorrow morning. And then there was the turning moment when she looked at me and she just said, she pointed to Kimiko's vagina and said, are you telling me that that's okay and normal to you? And I looked at her and said, I'm not saying it's okay and normal. I'm saying it's good compared to what I normally see. And the look of horror on her face was very much absorbed by me. And it was a turning point.
Had she been at births at that point?
Oh, yeah, a lot. But she had been with births with women who were preparing their tissues. And that was the turning moment where I went, uh-oh. And then I thought, I'm withholding valuable information. Mm-hmm. It has to stop. So it did. And I started sharing it in a very clumsy way. I had to nut it all out, again myself. And then look, over the years, I just got more and more curious and started to wonder about things. I studied body work to learn more touch techniques. I learned from some wonderful people, many different people in the world of body work and trauma, and just the whole somatic work, the whole range of people that you just absorb bits and pieces, and more pearls and more pearls and more pearls, and you get more curious. And then over time, you get women. I had women coming to me and said, can you help me? Because no one else can. And you go, I don't know. Let's see. And so women had courage, and women were coming forward and going, no one else can help me. Can you? And you go, okay, let's try and nut something out here. What if? And maybe. And then you study more anatomy and you start to look at the connections more. And then you go, oh, golly, so I could actually meet that fibre there rather than going there. And so that was how it's been. Until I set up the new website, I never had and before that I just had a basic website a year or so before so people could find me, but I never advertised. It was always word of mouth. People would call you or call me and just go, they'd often be very awkward on the phone.
Yeah.
Is this Fiona? And you go, yeah. Do you? Do you? I go, yeah, I do the vaginal work. Thank God, I rang the right number. And so it evolved like that. But then, and it was building and building and building. It just was getting more and more and more. And I thought, oh crumbs, I was doing other work as well. I went, wow, something's going to have to give here. So I let something go, and then it exploded. And this was during COVID. And I can say this now, that, for a while in Melbourne, we had shocking shutdowns. The first one, yes, I didn't work. And then I thought, you know what? I reckon this is essential work. I'm an essential worker. Bugger it. And the women were relieved. There was nobody looking after them. But it was almost like COVID put a big firecracker in women's pelvises. They woke up. Mm-hmm. And there was more talk and more need. And then all of a sudden I thought, I can't keep up. So my two mates in Queensland on the sunny coast, Jen Blythe and Andrea Lopez, Andrea was doing a lot of work as well, because we taught her years ago by doing some work on her, because she was having, I know she won't mind me saying this, she was having pain with sex after 2 cesareans. And we did work and the pain went away. So that what she felt in her own body combined with her body knowledge, she started doing some work herself. And Jen does a bit as well. And I rang Andrea and I said, listen, darling, I am knee-deep in vaginas down here in Melbourne. And she said, honey, I've got them to the left of me and to the right. What are we going to do? So I said, I'm getting on a plane. When are you free? And she told me when she was free from not having her kids with her. And I got on a plane and we got the butcher's paper out and we sat and we developed the internal pelvic release work mentoring program. Mm-hmm. So we could share it with more. And it bothered me enormously too, Mel, that women were travelling so far to see me. And I thought, look, we got to get women in their own communities helping them.
So have you collected, you must have, how many women do you feel like you may have worked on over the years?
Thousands.
And so you must have a bank of, I'm a researcher, right? So I'm looking at this going, oh my gosh, you are sitting on a bank of information about the impact that internal release work can have on women.
Oh, yeah. And even in my own body from my birth.
And this is not knowledge anyone will read in a textbook or even really get from any research papers. This is, you've synergized this in your mind based on everything that you've drawn together from your original mentor, from what you know of anatomy and physiology, and you've packaged it up in a training program to teach other people to do internal release work. So can you talk us through what would you do? So a woman comes and sees you.
Yeah.
What would you do for her when she arrives for internal release work?
Well, first thing I check, does she mind the dogs? Because if she doesn't like the dogs at the front door, I take them out the back. And every now and then you get a woman terrified, so you go, hang on a sec. You bring her into my room and I go, do you want a cuppa? And some will say, yeah. Inevitably, 9 women out of 10 will say, I've got to go to the loo first. I go, of course you do. If they're pregnant, for sure. If they're not, sometimes, they've driven or whatever, driven a long way. And then sometimes they've written a little note now in the booking system. I've had to put up a little note as to why they want to see me. And other times I call them the package surprise. And I don't mind that. I actually love it when sometimes I don't know why they're coming.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's obvious when they've got a lovely big baby in their belly at the front doorstep. But other times it's like, oh, we've got a real package surprise here. Come in. How can I help you? What is it that you want from me? How did you get to be here? What's going on for you right now? Then we unpack their stories. And some women are great historians and some are lousy. And so, it just depends. Sometimes it's so fraught with trauma that comes in bits and pieces. And you got to tease it out and go, what happened then? And sometimes I'll sit down and go, I don't know why I'm here, really. Someone said I should come. Well, they told you to come for a reason. What was that conversation? And so you tease that out and go, okay, that's great. Tell me about your births. You could have a 60-year-old woman sitting here. My hip's hurting. Tell me about that. Okay, let's go back to your births. Tell me about those. Why do you want to know about that? Oh, well, the story's probably still playing out in your body. And so you get this lovely story told in a woman's words with her own emotions, sometimes quite matter-of-factly and sometimes needing a tissue box. And then you go, right, okay, let's see. And sometimes I'm teasing out more or I'm saying, you're explaining things along the way. And then inevitably I'll go, just let me get a couple of things. So I usually grab my pelvis and, have pelvis can teach. And my knitted womb with the ligaments and stuff. Sometimes you need a dolly, sometimes you need stuff around pelvic floor. And you go, let me talk you through some of our anatomy that you and I have. And let's then work out where I think, or it might resonate with you, it'll drop in for you where you get ideas about what was impacted by that birth, by that car accident, by that fall, by that snowboarding accident, by that rape, by that abuse, by that trauma. And sometimes women can drop into memories as you're talking anatomy. And they go, you mean that can affect that? And you go, and other times it's like, well, and sometimes it starts to get quite mechanical with birth. You're talking about mid-pelvis, and you're going, well, if these fibres here have been snug, darling, and you were unaware, that would have really forced your little baby to have quite a bullying event in the birth. And it sounds like that baby didn't quite win on the day. It may not be, yeah, but they told me I didn't have enough room fee. Okay. Let's tease that one open.
When you ask women, what are you here for?
Yeah.
Why did you come? What are the main things that bring them when they arrive? What do women most want you to help them fix?
It's not always fixing. It's a lot of preparation. It's preparation for birth. I'm not a midwife who's ever worked with just leave it alone and let's see what happens. I don't have that philosophy. It's not that I am against anyone that has a philosophy of leaving it to nature or leaving it to chance. We're all going to have different viewpoints. That's okay. But I've never worked like that. And I guess I haven't because I was indoctrinated very early on in my first year out by this woman that don't leave it to chance. It's too big an event. You can prepare the body to make this huge life event go with greater ease. You can help, we use the terms, help a woman reach her anatomical potential. So a lot of women will come to prepare for birth. A lot of women will come to prepare for birth because the last birth went ass up. A lot of women will come to prepare for birth because they didn't understand what happened last time, or they ended up with a cesarean, or they didn't know how to push, and they kept telling me to push Fee, and I didn't know what they were talking about. A lot of women come because they've got painful sex. Post-cesarean, sex has always been painful. Some have a diagnosis of vaginismus, some with vulvodynia. You have women coming because they've got endometriosis. They've had laparoscopies and they understand that that can have a consequence in the dance of the pelvic tissues. They're postmenopausal with hip issues. They're post-birth and they want to zhuzh up and just check everything's back in order and able to dance, or I'm scared about my scar. They've had a couple of Caesars and they'd like to try for a vaginal birth. and trying to work out what the hell happened last time. Who else? There was somebody else I thought of then too. I've been raped, Fee.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's affected this and this is happening in my body now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been abused. I'm wondering whether it'll impact on me being able to have children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having trouble weeing, and I know my pelvic floor's tight.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought maybe I should get it checked for life, just in preparation in life.
Yes.
I'm having trouble pooing. My periods are painful. I've been told my womb's retroverted and it could affect my chance of having a baby. You name it. It's so many women. So many women.
And so then they come in and we have a cuppa. They talk through what's happened in their life and in their pelvic space. And then do you always deem that they would benefit from internal release, or are there times where you feel like it's not appropriate?
It's always appropriate. This is womanly knowledge. This is one woman, me, who's tried her best to nut a few things out,
Mm-hmm.
who wants to share with another woman how to be proud, understand your anatomy. It's even things like pelvic floor muscles.
Mm-hmm.
They're the great mystery of all time, aren't they? And we were never told as women, let alone midwives, we were never told as women how to tighten them. We were just told you had to tighten them.
Mm-hmm.
But are any of us doing it correctly? We were never taught as women or midwives where they begin and end. We just get the idea that they affect how we push a baby out. And if they're not tight enough, we don't hold our wee and our poo and our farts in. As midwives, we weren't taught anything much about them. We weren't taught where they join. We weren't taught that they come up to the mid-pelvis, that they affect a baby's rotation through the pelvis. There's so many pieces that are missing, and there's so much mystery about a woman's anatomy, and it's because we're so internal. Our Dharma men are very external, and it's socially acceptable for them to be playing and tinkering with their goods from a very young age, as soon as they can get their hand down their nappy. And they're playing with their equipment, and that goes on and on and on. And it's almost socially acceptable. We might go, I'll give it a break. They're fiddling and readjusting their balls in their trousers, But if we did that as women, if we gave our labia a good old itch just in public, just cocked your leg up and gave it a bit of an itch or a bit of a realignment, got the elastic off your undies off it or something like that,
Yeah.
let's be real. We know if that happens. It's just we do it in private because it would be socially unacceptable. But it's an odd thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a really odd thing that's not okay for us to do in public as our men are allowed to do. And so there's a lot of taboos and a lot of we don't go there as women. And that's reinforced by the fact that our sacred goods are deeply internal. And so part of the work of this pelvic work is appreciating, understanding in basic concepts, sometimes in more deeper concepts, but in basic ways, everyone can understand basic anatomy. And we've got this and that links there and da-da-da-da-da. And so women go out of there going, I got a fair bit of equipment in here.
Yes.
It's not tucked away for no reason. It's not tucked away because it's shameful. It's tucked away because it's too sacred to be on display.
And so you educate, obviously through your session, you would educate a woman about all this anatomy. And then what happens then after you've given her that kind of knowledge?
See, I believe I have a moral obligation to share that information to every woman. After that, then I'll say, okay, so this is what we can do, and through the back wall of this beautiful vagina, the vagina is a simple tube. Her architecture's not that complicated. Doesn't mean she's a dumbass. She's very intelligent. She's very discerning, but she's not that complicated. But she does get a lot of bad press, the vagina. But she's really quite innocent. It's all her structures around her that tend to cause the challenges. And I just say, so we're not going to go up to the cervix. That's 9.9 times out of 10. But sometimes you can, but often you don't. But if we turn our fingers down to the back wall of this tube, not up to where women are used to fingers going for a cervix check or a pap smear, but if we turn our fingers down through the back wall of the vagina, It's like she says, go and check out the back garden. You can go and feel through this generous stretchable back wall. She just says, go and look. And you can make contact with all the soft tissues that run bone to bone. Because you see, the soft tissues are the movers. They allow the bones to reach their anatomical potential. Bones don't move on their own. Everything works in harmony and partnership together. Mm-hmm. So when the tissues are holding any form of tension or irritation or trauma, you're going nowhere. You know, you can't have a woman reaching an anatomical potential, but we don't know we're holding that tension in our body often. Sometimes some things are obvious and others are not. And so through the back wall, we can make contact with different levels of pressure depending on how it feels for a woman. You don't do the same pressure for every woman. Everyone's got their own unique feedback, and everybody's holding different levels of trauma that can trigger different levels of pain response. So it's harder is not better. Sometimes you can touch as gently as a butterfly, and that's all those tissues need. And the touch serves as an invitation to say to the fibres, thank you for looking after her for whatever reason you did that for. But would you now like to come this way instead of staying that way? So it's his invitation to soften and transform. And in many ways, it's like an internal version, which has its different feel, to if you're having any form of body work externally. And sometimes you can feel tensions rising or different lumps and bumps coming up, or, you know, maybe a myotherapist or a medial massage person's on a tight tissue in your back. And in your head, you're thinking, geez, I wish they'd get off that quickly. And then it releases and you go, actually, I'm glad he did that. That feels better. It's very similar internally, that you can feel these flows and releases in these soft tissue fibres. So the pelvis you start with is not the pelvis you finish with. Then they'll want to have a wee again, usually, and then you get them. There's some external work I do as well, often. Mm-hmm. And because all the fibres do connect into the sacrum, I do like to hold the sacrum externally to let her have a sigh before I go inside. But sometimes I do the outside stuff first. I always do the outside stuff first. And then I get her comfy. Usually she's lying on her back or sometimes a bit propped, and get her cozy with cushions underneath. And I sit side saddle on one side, get her warm, keep her very covered. It's a very modest session. Before all that, though, you make sure she feels safe in the room. You double check again. You want to proceed. Do you feel safe with me? And how much do you want me to close up the windows, et cetera, you know? And then I normally would go in only with one finger. I use oils, and I just wait. If you wait at the entrance of the vagina, and this isn't only for this work, it's for love making as well. If you wait, the vagina will take you in. This is her intelligence and her discerning characteristic that comes forward. And she does take you in as if, and often I'll say to a woman, you're moving me, I'm not moving. They go, what? And I go, yeah, your vagina's just sighed and now I'm going in. And then you start the release work. And sometimes, depending on the comfort level for a woman, I may ask permission to add a second finger. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I can only use one, depending on that particular woman and her structure and her makeup and her comfort level. If I can use two, I prefer, because I can use a longer length of my finger, I can reach further. And I can use the flats of my fingers better rather than it feel a bit pointy.
And I would assume that it would have to be a finger because of the sensory experience that you need to have as a clinician.
Oh, yeah.
It couldn't be like a different tool or anything like that.
No, I'm not interested in using tools.
Yeah.
Because that lack of feedback, that would give me a great deal of worry, because everything's about feedback from the tissue. Can I hold you? Do you need me to get off you? Maybe I should come back. Maybe I need to go to your friend. See if the friend could talk to you and have you release. You can feel the changes are gobsmacking.
How long would it take to I mean, I feel like this is like how long's a piece of string, but how long would it take to feel some impact from your work?
In a session?
In a session.
Oh, straight away. Like as soon as you go in, I'll often go up to the cartilage joining the two pubic bones there, and you just wait. Sometimes it feels dry, and sometimes you know it's had a bit of a hard time. Maybe a vacuum cup scraped against it, or forceps of, or a baby's banged up against it, and you think, oh, geez, you've had a hard time, and you wait, and then she'll start pulsing, and there's a sigh, and often it feels like, sometimes like with the tissues, I call it, it goes from hard potato to mashed potato, and just this lovely softening, and then it's straight away, and then you hold another fiber, and there's a release, and there's a softening, and there's a pulsation, and oh, look at that, man. And women can feel it.
It's almost like you're reinvigorating the whole area.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
And is that just with deep touch, sustained touch, or is it massage?
No, I use touch and trigger work. So you're holding a fiber to elicit a response. But sometimes it's not even, it's weird. Sometimes it's not even to elicit a response. Sometimes you just hold a fiber and you think, oh, wow, have you been looking after her, you loyal soldier? And sometimes it's just that. I'm not saying that out loud, but in my head I'm often thinking that and just holding this tissue in awe. And then sometimes that alone will bring about the response of the fiber. Like that presence can sometimes serve as an invitation or a message to the tissue that your services of that nature are no longer required.
And is this kind of one of my very, very first degrees was in massage therapy. And when you massage the body, the more massages you do, you get to understand what all the muscles do, and then what they feel like when they're tight and what they feel like when they're relaxed. And then you can feel the difference between the right shoulder and the left shoulder, or the whatever you're massaging. And we do trigger point work where you would find that point in the muscle that was kind of the trigger point for what was happening in the rest of the muscle, and literally held down onto it while people, practice some deep breathing, because it was uncomfortable. But like you said, they realized that was the point that was giving them the problem. So I'm just trying to make sense of this in my own mind and understanding. Is it like doing that, but for the internal pelvic structures?
In part, but there's no obvious internal trigger points. Because internally, the sensations, number one, are very different, because externally you're working through skin and hair and fat, where internally you're only working through the back wall of the vagina. And so the sensations are weird, really weird. And they come with their own set of experiences. The other thing is in the pelvis, it's like, I call it pelvic braille. It's got its own language, and there's no signposts in there. So are you on something specifically? Yeah, I know a fair bit now, like I can feel differences after all this time. But when I teach, I'm asking people to go after what feels tight or uncomfortable and let it have its release and hold it in that way. So it's not a specific art. It's more in touch with the feel of the fiber, rather than going that if I put that trigger point on latissimus dorsi, like externally, that I know that will release. That's way more specific. Where internally it's not like that. You have to be very much more in tune with the dance of the tissues, rather than mechanically thinking about reaching a trigger point. Also with external work how it can arouse emotions, because the old thing, the body holds the score. Well, internally it's quite a big space to pack a few issues in there. Now it's not always the space that women think they've tucked stuff, but you're working pretty carefully. You're in someone's sacred space. It's not every day you go to a stranger and take your underpants off. And it's deep, vulnerable work. The sensations giving practical information, the sensations can be intense. And often I'll say to a woman, I know this is more intense than you would want. Can you manage it? If I hold it, I'm matching an intense energy right here. Otherwise it's going to flick me off. Can you manage that? yeah, I want that release. That I know you're on something right there. And so it goes on. And sometimes they get sensations, oh my God, that's exactly the pain I got in labour. Oh no, Fee, that's the one. That's the feeling that nearly drove me insane in labour. That's the one that led me to take the epidural. What is it? And sometimes I can go, well, I think I'm on this. I'm definitely on this. And sometimes it's like, don't know, love. It doesn't matter.
But it's equally emotional work as it is physical work when you're doing that.
It can be. Sometimes it's very matter of fact.
Yeah.
It really is. And other times it's deep emotional holding as well.
Yeah.
It's
And
like the other day there was a lady, a beautiful soul, young soul, who felt that she wasn't weeing properly. And she had a beautiful insight into her own body and her own emotions. And she said, I figure I better sort this one out before I choose to have babies, because I've got a fear I'll have prolapse. Like, a beautiful insight. So she said, I heard about you and I thought I better go and get my goods sorted out and just check if there's anything else I can do. And she had insight too that she was a bedwetter until, school, primary school age, well into primary school. And this isn't uncommon either. And it was interesting because on the table, she was a very matter-of-fact lady. She was a young woman, beautiful, straight down the line. And then we hit a couple of fibres and we got talking and I said, because you get little insights yourself as well. Then she had a few tears. And then she started laughing. She goes, geez, Fee, I didn't know it was going to be a psychotherapy session as well. It's such a great laugh, people get surprised that you could be doing, knee deep into a vagina doing release work and you could be laughing together, laughing your heads off. Sometimes you're crying and sometimes you're laughing.
Oh, and can you tell me about the sigh that happens? Because you talked about that on your website. I was reading a lot through what you've got online. And the internal sigh that happens, I imagine you can feel it and the women feel it.
Oh, yeah.
What is the sigh, just the release working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's magical. Yeah. And sometimes the sigh, it happens because you're working on the tissues. And sometimes it can be that, or I've felt it happen when a woman starts talking about a memory. Out of the blue, she starts talking about something. I don't know why I'm thinking about this, Fee, but da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And she'll tell me this story and I'm on a fibre and I'm just staying with it and staying with it and staying with it. And then it just goes whoosh. It's like, yeah, it was all caught up with that memory. And sometimes it was a memory when she fell as a child that she'd forgotten about, but geez, it hurt. Mummy wasn't there to comfort her, or something else happened, and then these fibres have come to her rescue and been holding her ever since. And nobody went to them and told them that they could stand down, that she was now safe as houses and no need for them to be bristling and looking after her.
I know you're seeking to make sure there's more people like you who can do internal release work. But it would currently be the reality that not many women would be able to access this kind of therapy.
True.
Is there anything that either women could do for themselves or that they could do to prevent needing this kind of work? Any preventative strategies until we wait for this to become a much more universally accessed knowledge? Yeah, I'm just thinking of women listening to this going, well, that's great. I want internal release work, but I'm nowhere near Fiona or anybody who knows any of this stuff.
But there are people also, Jen and Andrea have run the program in Queensland. So there are practitioners around Queensland as well. And they'll be teaching in Canberra in the second half of this year. So there'll be practitioners available in Sydney and Canberra. Yeah, Darwin wants it, Perth wants it as well. So it's sort of like, how do you do it? I hear what you're saying. The prevention, there's just one thing with how to prevent needing this work. I have this idea in my brain, or it's really a dream, that when I do finally retire one day, which I'm not sure when that will be, I suspect not for a very long, long, long time, that the number of women coming for care are coming to prepare for big events rather than healing. And so at the minute it's asked about. There's a lot of coming for healing rather than the other. There's the women definitely coming for preparation, but the concept, the dream for me is that they come to prepare for birth, so women are coming out with a lot less impact. If the women are trying to prepare for birth and they can't make contact with me or anybody else that I work alongside with, or anyone that's done the education with us, and there's quite a few around now, they can use their own thumb. And you can't use your fingers going into your vagina because you'd be like, Houdini, turn yourself inside out like a pretzel. But you can oil up your own thumb and you can get closer to the ground. When I prepared for my babies, this is what I did. And I did like a semi sort of kneeling squat on the floor before my shower every day, one leg up and one leg kneeling. And I'd go in with my thumb oiled and I'd do stroking motions all around what I call the smiley face of the vagina. And often if you reach deep enough, and you have to stop because you'll get breathless, and then you go again, and then you wish you never even heard about this, and you curse the day you sort of started to think you'd do it. And then you just
got a ginormous pregnant belly hanging out in
yeah.
front of you.
Oh yeah, but I was 17 days over with my firstborn, and I'm telling you, where there's a will, there is a way. So you go in and you can stroke in, you can do sort of stroking motions or circular type motions, and you can really reach right into those sit bones. You can reach to the tissues connecting in there. And then you can oil up your fingers on the outside and hold the butt cheek on the outside and your thumbs on the inside. And you can do stroking motions. So it's a lot of like picking up the tissue. I call it kneading the dough. We knead the dough, and you can go down into that deep vaginal entrance, banging down into the anus and go on either side of the anus and then either side again to the other sit bone. And some work on that, a few minutes just working those tissues, brings more blood supply to the area and then brings a lot more mellowness into that area. There'll be spots inevitably that women find that they go, oh, God, I hate that one. But I could promise them that 2 to 3 weeks of consistent kneading the dough, they will hit those fibres and go, oh, hello, old friend.
And those sensations where they find, oh, that one, I don't like that one, that could be the sign that that's where the work needs to be.
If you don't like it, you do not ignore it. I had a couple of those too in preparing for my babies, and I had to make them my friends. I still never enjoyed the sensation, but it didn't make my eyebrows raise.
I mean, this is something I guess a willing partner could assist with as well.
For sure.
If they're feeling confident and the woman's feeling safe with them.
And a lot do it together. This is working the tissues with gentleness but a deliberateness. It's knowing that we can work it so that there's more give, more stretch and more familiarization with that touch. And then from there, it's a deep trust that all the fascial interweaving will gossip throughout the pelvis. Yes, you can't reach as far as me, but when I prepared for my babies, that's all I could do. I had no one to do the work, and it worked. And it will shorten the pushing phase of labour. I will guarantee that with consistent daily work from 32 weeks of pregnancy, you can shorten the pushing phase of labour.
So that's the idea of this in the prep. If in Fiona's ideal world, every woman would be preparing her pelvic space like this, either with a professional or herself.
Yeah.
And the idea would be to make that space as function optimally so that when you're having a baby, nothing in there is holding back that process.
Yes, 100%.
So are you feeling like this internal pelvic work just takes away the internal kind of tightness that impacts how the baby moves through the pelvis?
Yes, 100%. And not only is it for the pushing phase of labour, But when you do work right up high as far as piriformis muscle, sacrospinous ligament, we're talking mid-pelvis. As midwives, we know that many, many babies get caught up in mummies at 4 to 8 centimetres dilated. That's a classic, often, not always, but it's a classic mid-pelvic stall. Or when she's 4 and she's 4 and she's 4 and we transfer. When she's 7 and she's 7 and she's 7 and it's OP and we need to transfer because she can't stand it anymore. I know, I've done home birth too. And you know, for many, it's at that mid-pelvis, because mid-pelvis isn't just at ischial spines. It's just above and just below. -1, 0, +1. And when you have a gnarly sacrospinous ligament hooking from ischial spines over to the base of sacrum into coccyx, with the coccygeus muscle running over the top of it like they're twins, partners in crime, you got piriformis fascia coming into that as well, let alone what's below it. You got a baby, it's a bun fight. And what we're seeing is the soft tissues often winning. Mummy gets a stall, she gets told your pelvis isn't big enough, the baby can't turn around, it's stuck, it can't do a final rotation. We know if it can just rotate past that ischial spine region, we are cooking with gas with birth. That baby's going to rotate all the way down, and next thing you know, we're going to hear a little grunt in her voice. Then we're dealing with second stage, or the beginnings of the coming into second stage. But many women don't get to that. And when you can even work on those tissues and free up that level, we're getting women having vaginal birth after Caesars because they're starting to realise their anatomical space. It's not there. No one's a write-off.
Can you do anything in the moment? Can this pelvic internal release work be done in labour?
The ideal is no, that it's preparatory work. Have I done it? Yes.
Okay. Well, and really, I feel like what you've done is you've learnt women's knowledge, and this is how knowledge was passed down historically.
Yeah, that's right.
That a woman would work it out.
Yeah, and share it.
And share it. Over time, you would work out that it worked. There was some kind of mental scientific process that got applied, and you gathered and gathered and gathered information. And then she told another woman, and another woman started doing that, and then we all apprenticed off each other and learnt stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, I mean, this is just what you've done. And although I'm a researcher and would love to see it launched into, put on paper in a way that everybody else would appreciate as well, I just love that this is such sacred knowledge and it's held on to in such an oral tradition to this point, which could spook some people.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it, but bad luck.
Right, they just don't get the benefit of internal release work.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not here to convert everyone. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. I've got story after story after story, and woman after woman after woman going, that made the difference, or she made the difference herself. It's no end of stories of women going, I could feel the difference, and I'm so glad I did my prep work. And when a woman can come out of birth saying that, it's pretty gobsmackingly beautiful. And I think you'd said something, it might have been on your website, Mel, that what we do is not just to get good births. The good births for me it's just a day. But the good birth, a good birth, whatever that is, where a woman feels like she nailed it, however she did it. I don't care how she did it, where she did it, she nailed it. Whether it was an elective Caesar and a well-timed epidural or a home birth, she nailed it. She felt really good about it. She can come out of that experiencing and get straight on with her mothering. Mm-hmm. And then she's got a different form of connection with her child. Mm-hmm. But for anyone that's had birth trauma or something challenging occur, and I had this with my first, you spend every feed for weeks, months, years going over what could I have said, why didn't I say it, if I'd done that, should I have done that, I could have, they could have, and there's a lot of distracted energy there that takes away from mothering. Years ago, I had the privilege of caring for a very powerful woman for her third baby, and she'd had 2 Caesars, good-sized babies, got stuck at the same state. Third baby, did a lot of prep work, and she had, still to this day, the pelvis to die for. Like, whoa, was it a beauty? Like, I still, she's right up there in my top 5 of size. Like, it was ballroom blitz, And I said, why on earth are you not using this space, girl? Why aren't you letting the kids in here? Because if you let a kid in here, it's going to fly out. Anyway, the third baby did fly out. Good-sized babe. She literally flew through. And when I was going to say goodbye to this family in about 6 weeks, I said, so, love, how is it now that you've achieved your dream, that you got that vaginal birth after your 2 Caesars, and how is that now for you? She goes, yeah, whatever. I said, but tell me, how's your mothering been? Oh, she said, that's completely different.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Oh, well, she said, the 2 boys, every day I thought about birth. It was birth. It was like a repeating record in my head. I couldn't get past it. And, of course, it's a trauma because it's a job not finished. It's a huge body function not completing a process. And so there's a lack of reconciliation between the brain and the tissues. So these women are stuck in this trapped trauma cycle. But she said, yeah, I just got that birth and healed and was way more present.
Yes.
Because I wasn't thinking about birth anymore. And I went, beauty. That's the only thing that mattered to me. And to me, it's still the only thing that matters, that when the mummies have got those attention particles free for their babe and they're not having to resolve a trauma, then we've got healthier families. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that to me is very, very, very important. That's why I do what I do, not because I'm fixated on vaginal birth, none of that. I just reckon trauma causes family chaos.
Yeah. So much of what you're saying is making sense. It's blowing my mind at what we're missing in maternity care and in matrescence.
Yeah. It's not rocket science.
No.
It's very organic.
And I'm wondering do you know if there's any older traditional histories and stories of this happening in communities pre-medicine?
Once, many years ago, and I wish all those things you wish you wrote down or whatever, I've got this memory of someone telling me, and my brain wants to say a Malaysian woman said to me, I cannot tell you where or how or when this memory goes back to, but there's a memory of something about amongst Malaysian women, a form of preparation of the tissues was handed down. And there has to have been something along the way of realising that we can speak to tissues to help them realise a fuller potential. They can. There's too many real lived examples from very normal women to defy, to say that this doesn't help. There's too many. There's way too many. Even women that have ended up with a couple of births intact, no stitches, feeling still like they were beaten up after birth. That they were swollen and they could barely walk and they were in real strife for quite a few days until the swelling calmed down. Quite a few days, sometimes weeks. And there's one woman comes to mind, and we did the work. And her excitement was beyond words when she just said, I just feel completely normal. I'm going to do this every time. That's a great idea. Why wouldn't you do this every time for every baby? You just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. And I only have one example. I had a client who her first birth, the baby was posterior, and it was really painful for her.
Yeah.
And eventually we decided, after trying, we did spinning babies and the sterile water injections, and she was physiological positioning. There was nothing more that I just thought, gosh, we can't do anything more for this woman.
Yeah, poor love.
Oh, gosh, And I remember the second midwife coming and saying, has she been like this the whole time?
Ooh.
And I said, yes. She said, you've got to take her to hospital. Like just the sheer kind of intensity of it.
Yeah.
And you know, I just thought I'm not taking her until she wants to go. But you know, that was the impact it had on this second midwife. And so she had her baby by forceps and episiotomy in hospital. And she came to me again for her second baby. She said, right, this time I'm doing this, all this pregnancy work, chiropractic, osteopathy, spinning babies, stretching, yoga, all the things, internal pelvic release work. She said, where can I find a practitioner? And I was like, gosh, I don't know. We're just going to have to search for somebody who's in your area. She found someone, did internal release work, and next baby, she's laboring, and she felt a similar sensation to her last baby, and she thought, oh my gosh, it's happening again. And I remember she got so cranky with the sensation, she shot up out of the pool and raced off to the toilet and sat over the toilet backwards. And she went, I'm going to the toilet. She went there, felt enough impact that the baby had moved down and put some tension on her perineum. And she was like, right, it's done. She got back up off the toilet, back into the pool, and pushed her baby out,
Wow.
and was intact. And I said to her, after I checked her, I said, no, there's no tearing. Like, it looks completely normal, like you've done nothing at all,
Yeah.
that you haven't even had a baby. And she's like, and I remember her saying, I think it was the internal release work.
Yeah.
And it's really sparked an interest in me. And I just hope that, Fiona, we can, or you, anyone, the whole universe can work out a way to get this information out faster. I mean, this podcast will hopefully do it. We get about, 60,000 downloads a month on this podcast. So hopefully. But is there anything else that you want to share with us today about internal release work?
There's only one me, but there are others, and I'll be aiming to put anyone who I've taught, and Jen and Andrea have taught, onto my website. It's not there yet, but I do work with a little team here at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that eventually that will expand. And I do urge people, they only need, it's always beautiful to see people for more than one session, because the second time the tissues go, oh, it's you again. Right, let me show you this today, But you only really need one, and then to continue doing the work. But anything else to say about it? I just, if anybody's got any ideas about how we can make this publicly funded for all women.
Oh, yes.
I'm no businesswoman, love. I just it would just be such a gift to be able to offer it, to really have people start to show concern and want to do research as to why there's a reduced number of forceps and vacuums and episiotomies cut. God, I'd love that. Because if you reduce that, then we're going to reduce prolapse. Then we're going to, you're going to reduce a whole lot of tension within a couple, because she's going to feel more comfortable to reconnect eventually physically and sexually with her darling.
I'm just so grateful that you overcame your initial embarrassment at this and just decided to go for it with such conviction. And for your original mentor, who also had the bravery to say to another woman, hey, I've got this idea. Let's nut it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, she was extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. I can remember some of the women in my early days. Oh, crumbs. It's like they must have thought I was a right daft idiot, but I did my best with what I knew.
Amazing. Well, it's out there now. We can't put it back in. It's like toothpaste.
Yep. Genie's out the bottle.
Sure is. Amazing. So, Fiona, people can train in internal release work. You've got training courses. So we're going to put all of that information in the show notes.
Okay.
And can anyone, like if they're not a midwife, this is open to anybody. Would that be correct?
Yeah. I've taught chiros, osteos, physios, midwives, body workers, and some doulas as well. the osteos have really run with it, and the chiro and the midwives. Like, the midwives have the advantage, the big advantage of when working with pregnant women or post-birth women who have wondered what on earth happened to them, of helping them nut it out. So it becomes often, it's a big debriefing session, not only of the mind and the heart, but also of the pelvis. And so they come with a distinct advantage, a midwife does. But it's not to say that others can't run with it as well, and they are.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your wisdom and bravery over all the years, but also today. And for anybody who's interested in training its internal pelvic release work, have a look in the show notes. All of Fiona's information is going to be there. And Fiona, are you saying there's not a universal database where people can go to find a practitioner? Is that
no? I've got to get that set up. Okay. Everything's starting to explode quite quickly, and I have to do that because I'll be teaching in Canberra from August the course. I'm going up for the 4 modules, and once some of those folks kick off around Sydney way, it'll pick up a bit there, I think.
Well, I dare to say that once this episode airs, it's going to kick off. So, we'll see.
God help me.
So we'll see. I mean, let's see how this goes. I just really appreciate you being here today, and
thanks,
let's see
Mel.
what happens.
Thanks for inviting me. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for being here for today's episode of the Great Birth Rebellion podcast. If you want to get access to all the resources that we use to create every single podcast episode, you can join the mailing list at melaniethemidwife.com, or better still, the Premium Members Hub. The Premium members get access to transcripts, the Ask Mel a Question button, an exclusive Ask Me Anything episode every month. All the details are in the show notes, and I will see you in the next episode of the Great Birth Rebellion.